Hello and welcome back to Six Sense CEO. My name is Sam and I will be your host today and every day of this amazing show where we really dive deep into the heart of running a business. Wow, I cannot believe we are on episode 6 of the show. This has been such a fun project for me. I cannot wait to continue sharing more of my insights and things I've learned along the way since I started my content marketing agency 3 years ago. In those 3 years, I've scaled it to a multi-six-figure business, and I'm proud to say that, but at the same time, I just know all of the work that went into it, not just from me, but from our team and how much we've grown over the years. So truly, it's been an amazing journey, and I'm so thrilled that I get to share it with you on this show. So today, we're going to talk about an aspect of business that every single business owner on the face of the planet has struggled with at one time or another, and that is managing your time. Here's the thing. Your time is probably way more valuable than you think it is because time is a non-renewable resource. Time is precious because you can get money back, you can get a lot of the other resources we have in business back, but time is fundamentally irreplaceable. And yet it's so easy to let the seconds, the minutes, the hours that really matter the most to slip through the cracks. And I wanted to name this episode Time Mindfulness rather than Time Management because really that's what this is about. This is not about making to-do lists or checking your little tasks off of your project management system. Those are aspects of managing your time and using it, but being truly mindful about how you're spending your time overall as a human being is where it's at. So we're going to talk about how to master your time in a way that is fulfilling both professionally in your business and personally just in the things that you enjoy doing as a human. Because a lot of the time for business owners, and this is how it was for me, especially in my first couple of years of business, it's very easy to lose sight of who you are as a person because you're so invested in the business. That's where I was before. I felt like a shell of a person. I think I've talked about this before on the show, but I felt like I didn't have an identity outside of my business for a while. And that made it very difficult to truly enjoy all that life has to offer, all that this human experience has to offer. Because the truth is that everybody in this world has 24 hours in their day. And this might make some people mad because there's a huge debate about whether everyone has the same 24 hours or not, right? And while everyone may not have the same opportunity to have time freedom, essentially all 24 hours are the same. So it's up to you to use those 24 hours mindfully. And if you don't have the time freedom you want, then it's your responsibility to create that for yourself. And that's one of the biggest reasons I started a business was so I could make my own schedule, rest when I need to, honor the needs of my body, do what I want when I want. And that time freedom is priceless. So if you constantly find yourself wishing you had a few more hours in the day, or you constantly just wonder where your time went, like your whole day goes by and you're just like, wow, time got away from me, this episode is for you. So this episode is going to be not just about managing your time, but mastering it and making sure that the ways that you invest your time bring you a benefit of some sort, whether that's revenue for your business, satisfaction and enjoyment of the human experience, or contributing to your future somehow, because that's what it's all about. All right, so really, this whole time mastery concept goes so much deeper than business. Because when you learn to be mindful about your time and really just mindful in general about what you do day to day, you can have deeper relationships, you can find more joy in simple things, and of course you can grow your business because when we're not being mindful with our time, it manifests in scrolling on TikTok for hours, watching Netflix for hours, sitting around. I mean, I don't know. Maybe video games do bring you joy. I'm not a huge gamer. So, if video games bring you joy and Netflix and all of that, I'm not saying that you should cut that out of your life. but you should be mindful about how much time you're spending on that versus the other areas of your life that you want to invest time in. So let's dive in and talk about how you can master your time so you can build the life and business that you've always dreamed of. It's time to stop missing deadlines, stop constantly being behind, and actually make your time work for you. So like I mentioned, when you spend time, you can't get it back. It's irreplaceable. So I want to invite you to envision time as a currency. Every morning you are credited with 86,400 seconds that you can spend throughout the day however you want. But the thing is that these 86,000 credits do not roll over to the next day. At the end of the day, they expire forever. They're gone. You can't hoard it. You can't store it. You can't save it up like you can with money. That's the key difference. The only way you can use it is to spend it wisely, moment by moment. Truly invest it in the areas that matter to you. So whenever you start viewing your time as this precious resource that it is, that's when you realize how to be more intentional with it. The way I see it, every hour that is not used intentionally is a missed opportunity to do something intentional with it. And I just want to remind you of what I just said, that using it intentionally does not at all mean that you have to be working all the time. That's not what I'm saying at all. That's not what I'm suggesting. I would never suggest that. There's so much to enjoy outside of working in the human experience. So using your time intentionally might be having dinner with your partner, going to the beach with your friends, calling a family member or a loved one. Those are not things that are going to increase your revenue probably, but those are things that are intentional uses of your time. And with that same time, you could scroll on TikTok for 3 hours, but instead, if you're using it intentionally, then you can actually do something that's going to bring value to your life. So I'll share a practical example of this. Whenever I travel, because I travel a lot, and I go on a plane, I always purchase the Wi-Fi if it's not free. And I'm really shocked that other people don't do this as much, and other people think it's so crazy to buy Wi-Fi on a plane. But this is how I see it. As a service provider, I have a set hourly rate that I value my time at. And that's how I often calculate whether new projects are going to be a good investment or not, is calculating the number of hours I think it's going to take versus how much I value my time at, and making sure I can still make a profit off of that project. So for this example, let's just say my rate is $100 an hour. Okay. Now, if I'm on a 6-hour flight, if I don't purchase the Wi-Fi and I don't do any work, then that equals $600 of lost revenue. So then if the Wi-Fi is $15 or $20, if I use this logic, it is a no-brainer to buy the Wi-Fi because the cost of that lost time is so much more than what it would cost to just pay for Wi-Fi for the duration of the flight. So I'm spending that relatively small amount to have the opportunity to continue to work on my projects and make progress on my work, strategize for upcoming tasks or whatever it may be. So again, this is not about being busy all the time. This is about being strategic. Every minute, every hour of our time has an opportunity cost. So I like to ask myself this question all the time. I always ask myself, is this a valuable use of my time right now? And if the answer is no, then it's time to reassess that task or that activity. So now let's move into discussing how to avoid these time suck traps. So first, I want to identify a few of the activities I see that really cost us a disproportionate amount of time to the value that they provide. So 3 things that come to mind are scrolling on social media mindlessly, just browsing the internet mindlessly, or just consuming too much of other people's content and not creating as much. Now, I love consuming content. I love listening to podcasts, watching YouTube videos, stuff like that. But whenever I'm listening to a podcast, I'm usually doing something along with it. And that's something I'm going to talk about in a second. But at face value, these activities often cost us more than they bring us in return. So they're things that we should be mindful of whenever we're going to do that. Now, am I going to continue to scroll on social media? Yes, absolutely. Am I going to continue to watch Netflix? Yes, absolutely. I'm going to continue to listen to podcasts and watch videos and do all the things that I did before. But the difference is that whenever I'm approaching this from a place of mindfulness, I'm condensing those activities into a short period of time, or I'm multitasking or doing something else. It's all about being mindful and strategic. And it's crazy because the social media platforms are built to make us spend our time. The more time that people spend on the apps, the more money the platforms make. So even though social media is free, if you're spending your time on it, you're essentially paying the platform. Keep that in mind. And the endless scroll of these platforms, whether it be TikTok or Instagram or any of the apps that just have an endless stream of content available, all of those can pull us away from being productive or doing more valuable things with our lives. So one thing I like to do as well is block off times for intentional social media use or intentional website browsing, because whatever I'm doing research for, let's say a podcast episode or a new piece of content I'm producing, if I'm going to do research on it and look at what other creators have done or look up some information, that counts as being intentional because I'm going into it with a purpose versus me sitting on the couch eating potato chips and scrolling on TikTok for a whole hour without getting up, you know? So just make sure that whenever you are doing something, you're essentially setting a goal for what that's going to be for. And maybe it is scrolling on TikTok for an hour. I've been using that example a lot, but I think it's a good one. Maybe you just want to scroll for an hour and that's your downtime and you're unwinding from the day, and that's totally fine. But one thing you can do to set boundaries with that is to set a timer for an hour, 30 minutes, or however long you plan to be scrolling. That counts as intentional use of your time because you're putting a limit on it and you're saying, I'm going into this and doing it for this amount of time, and that's it. If you do that, then these, quote unquote non-productive activities won't consume your life because you have that boundary in place. Personally, I have my phone on Do Not Disturb a lot of the time, and I only have people that are like close to me allowed through. So if my dad calls me, for example, it'll come through no matter what. But I have boundaries with notifications and calls and texts to make sure that I'm really intentional about checking that, or just making sure that I'm not constantly picking up my phone to check what the latest thing is going on. Another thing I've been doing lately is scheduling my social media posts, because I don't like posting something every single time in real time, only because to me, I get an emotional attachment to the post when I do that. So, for example, if I'm uploading a new Instagram photo and I, post it in real time, I almost have an emotional attachment where I keep checking back to see, oh, who's liked it, who's commented. And it's important to be responsive to comments anyway, so that's not necessarily a bad thing. But if I schedule my content out, I'm not even thinking about that. The post isn't even on my mind. I'm not worried about it. I'm going about my day and I'll check the platform later, respond to comments, and do the whole thing. So I like scheduling my posts because it gives me a block of time where I can schedule all the content out for the week and be intentional about that. And then I don't have to worry about it. And I don't get that same emotional attachment to each post whenever I'm publishing it. Let me know if that makes sense. Or maybe I'm just weird. All right, so now let's talk about delegation. Now, this is something I love talking about on the podcast because it's something that's been a true game changer in my business. Learning how to delegate is essential for any entrepreneur who wants to truly optimize their time and be in their zone of genius, which we talked about in episode 3. So if you haven't listened or watched that one, go check it out. Again, we're available on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify, so wherever you like to tune in is perfect. So essentially what I said in that episode is when you delegate tasks, it's not about just offloading all of your dirty work to other people. It's truly about letting everyone be in their zone of genius and do what they're good at, because you have certain things you're good at. Your contractors or the team you're working with all have their own zones of genius as well. So when you put everyone in their zone of genius, it creates a beautiful harmony that just works. So if you're going to delegate, I mentioned this actually in episode 4 as well towards the end, but it's good to make a list of tasks that you don't like and a list of tasks that you're not good at, because those are wonderful starting points for delegation. And you could also make a list of tasks of things that would just be easy for you to delegate, like responding to emails or customer service inquiries, or even certain types of content production. I have team members who help me with video editing and adding little captions to videos and stuff like that. So I don't even do all of that myself. And by delegating these tasks to people, these tasks that are not necessarily your zone of genius, you actually free up your mental and physical energy to be able to focus on what you do best. And also the things that are going to make you the most money. So if your money-making activities or revenue-generating activities are posting on social media, then you can focus more time on your content strategy. If it's going to networking events, you can do more of that. If it's sending email campaigns, then you can up your email frequency. So they're entirely so many benefits to delegation if you do it right. So whenever you delegate these tasks, you just want to make sure that you have a strong process laid out that explains how you want the task to be completed. Make sure that you give the person all the resources they need, clear instructions. What I like to do sometimes is I'll record a Loom video. So a Loom is basically like a screen sharing recording app. So you can record your screen and talk over it and explain how you want something to be done. So I use that a lot in my business. All the people I work with have access to my Canva Pro account, or the content creators I work with, I should say. So they can access all the previous files, they can see the style of previous designs, and they can access, colors, fonts, everything that's needed to keep things on brand for both my brand and then also our clients. That's just the benefit of keeping everyone on the same page. At the end of the day, delegation is the key to having a scalable business, meaning that you only have 24 hours in your day. Most of that time is probably not going to be spent on your business as well. So you need to have clear processes in place that can be scaled up as you bring more people into your world to help you. All right, next I'm going to talk about a time management hack that's been top of my mind lately, because I can't remember if I mentioned this in a previous episode or not, but one of my goals for this year is to lose 30 pounds. So I am working to get down to a specific goal weight by the end of the year. And so in order to do that, I have been on a really good nutrition plan that's been going well. I'm weighing food, counting calories, all that stuff, making sure I'm getting enough protein. But one thing that helps a lot is also cardio. So I have a regular weightlifting schedule. My boyfriend and I go to the gym together, and we often will, do different days like chest and back day, leg day, etc. But on the side, I also like to do walking. So I actually ended up purchasing a mini treadmill. It was like $100. It wasn't too expensive, because I know the big treadmills usually are, but it was very affordable. I got it. I got a little standing desk that I can use to actually do work while I'm walking on the treadmill. In this example, I'm stacking the habit of doing my work and checking emails and just doing basic stuff with also walking at about 2 miles per hour. So whenever I'm walking, I usually walk between 1 and 2 hours a day, which results in more calories burned to help contribute to my goal of losing weight. So this keeps me physically active, and it also makes sure that I stay on top of my business goals without having to consolidate and completely separate these activities. And that, my friends, is what I like to call habit stacking. It's stacking one habit on top of the other. So when you're creating your own habit stacks, you want to link together tasks that are compatible. So answering emails and walking on the treadmill, flying while doing work, listening to educational podcasts while driving, or just brainstorming business ideas while you're on a hot girl walk in the morning. So you want to be consistent with these, and you also want to make sure, obviously, that the tasks are compatible. So, walking while answering emails works well for me, but I'm not going to be full on sprinting while I'm taking a meeting or something like that, because that would be a little bit strange, right? So now I want to talk about setting boundaries with work and life. And in this case, I do want to talk about setting boundaries with leisure activities. So again, I am not saying that you should be working 24/7 and that's it. But whenever you're unwinding and you're having your downtime, it is kind of easy to slip into that habit and not be as disciplined and structured with your work. Because if you're an entrepreneur and you work for yourself, you have to have very good discipline in managing your tasks and making sure that you're actually working. And without clear boundaries, your relaxation time can actually seep into the time that you're supposed to be working and you're supposed to be productive. So one thing I would recommend, and this is what I love doing, is setting specific time blocks on your calendar for leisure activities. So I like to block out my morning routine, my time to do my makeup in the morning, my gym time. All of that is blocked into my calendar to make sure that I have a set time where I can unwind and take care of myself and do all the things. So this isn't about limiting your leisure time. This is about compartmentalizing your day to make sure that you're being disciplined and getting to your work, but you're not also overworking yourself, because if it's on the calendar, it's happening. No questions about it. That's a non-negotiable. And by scheduling in these little breaks throughout your day, you're actually going to be more productive during your working times, because you're not burning yourself out by not having any breaks scheduled on the calendar. I personally use my Apple Calendar. I could not live without it. Some people like Google Calendar better, but I simply use my Apple Calendar because I have multiple calendars synced to it. So that's really my source of truth where everything is in one place. Another tip I have is to use a time tracking tool to see how much time you're spending on each project. So at my company, we use a tool called Toggle, and it's essentially a stopwatch that also keeps a log of all the activities and the time you spent on them. You can manually add time as well, so you don't have to use a stopwatch feature, but I personally like it and I find it convenient. So by logging your time, and I actually only log my working time, but it really shows how much time I'm spending on different activities so I can see what can be easily delegated, what is a huge time suck that I need to get more assistance with, and stuff like that. And actually, from a business perspective, it's incredibly helpful to see where your time is going because then you can understand whether the work that you have is actually profitable or not. So, for example, if we'll just say my hourly rate is $100 an hour, use the same example as before. Let's say I have a client who's paying $800 a month, but then I find out that I'm spending more than 8 hours a month on this client, then that work isn't profitable because then my hourly rate decreases and it's not meeting that desired hourly rate that I value my time at. So this is all about just understanding the value of your time, valuing it properly, and also making sure that your time is allocated in a way that supports the growth of your business. Because remember, every hour counts. So if you're going to block out your time on your calendar, I would recommend doing that at the beginning of every week, just so you have everything set, you know what's going on, and you have a guide to follow throughout the week. And I know I said it's not negotiable, but if you really need to adjust the block, you totally can. It's not like set in stone or anything, but this is just all about having a good system of accountability and organization for yourself. One thing I always say is, like, in context of masculine and feminine energy, you have to create a masculine structure, meaning the time block calendar, in order to let your feminine self thrive. So, for example, by scheduling self-care into your calendar, by scheduling workouts or time to relax into your calendar, that truly gives you the boundaries needed for your feminine energy to shine through and thrive, and for you to relax and just be in feminine mode. So finally, I do want to touch on this because we've talked a lot about just structural tips, things you can do to organize your life better and manage your time. But at the same time, it's so important to honor your body's needs. Entrepreneurship is so demanding at times, and it's very easy to push yourself too hard. But I have learned this the hard way. A tired entrepreneur is not an effective one. And you do have a level of flexibility in your scheduling, so you should use it to your advantage. For example, I'm a morning person. I like waking up early. My mind is so sharp, and I have the most energy in the morning. So the tasks that require the most thinking, the most mental energy, I like to schedule as one of the first things I do in the day. And one thing I'll do, if I see myself running low on energy in the middle of the day, then sometimes I do take a short nap, 30 minutes, an hour. I move stuff around in my time block calendar, and that allows me to almost reset and re-energize myself. And vice versa, if you're a night owl and you like staying up late, hey, if you're an entrepreneur, you can do whatever you want. You make your own schedule. So if you want to stay up till 3 or 4 in the morning doing whatever work because you just get the best ideas at night, then go for it. You don't have to be in the 5 a.m. club to succeed. And that's a misconception a lot of people have. And again, always make sure that you're making time for your self-care activities, whether it be taking an everything shower, like I talked about in the last episode, or going on a hot girl walk, going to the gym, seeing your friends, calling your family, spending time with your partner. Those things matter just as much as your business does. So make sure that you're truly making time for them. All right, lovelies. Well, we are wrapping up today's episode, and I just wanted to thank you so much for your time today. I have some exciting news coming soon. I'm working on some extra special offers to share with you so we can continue to grow together. I'm going to be launching my online community soon. It'll be a membership, and we're actually going to host some free live masterclasses within that community. So I will have more details on that very soon. But for now, I just want to recap what we discussed in today's episode. We talked about how to value your time, how to avoid common time traps, how to delegate effectively, set boundaries, stack your habits. And that was a game changer, so make sure you implement that one in your life. And finally, make sure that you listen to your body. Your body will not lie to you. Your intuition will not lie to you. So if you need to take a break, then by all means, take it. So I hope this episode inspired you to reflect on how you spend your days and how you could spend your time more intentionally. So I invite you to journal on that and ask yourself what you can do to be more intentional with your time, make the most of every moment, and truly create a more joyful and fulfilling life, in addition to investing in your business. So try some of these strategies out. Let me know how it goes. I would love for you to DM me on Instagram, which you can find in the show notes or the description, depending on what platform you're accessing this content on. So feel free to DM me and let me know what you think. If you love this episode, then make sure you share it to your story so more people can see it. So again, thank you so much for tuning in. Remember to make every second count, and I'll talk to you next week.